In an extraordinary journey of dedication and adventure, a South African working adventurer, Rutland, has spent almost 40 months of the last 8 years criss-crossing the globe on bike and foot. What started as a bold move in 2013, leaving behind a corporate career and an average life, led Ron to embark on a world-first unsupported solo bicycle journey through every country on the continent. That 27-month odyssey culminated at the 2015 Rugby World Cup in England, forever altering Ron's path. Now, Ron's journey has taken him from Auckland in New Zealand to the French capital, Paris, ahead of the 2023 Rugby World Cup, which kicks off on Friday. Ron joins us this evening from Twickenham in England. Ron, great to chat to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you share some of the highlights and challenges you've experienced during your epic solo bicycle journey through every country on the African continent?
Yeah, well, good evening, and what a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. You really have taken me back a little bit. It's almost 10 years exactly since I left Cape Town Stadium. I sold everything in the world that I owned and bought a bicycle, and with no experience, and hadn't probably spent 3 or 4 nights of my life in a tent. Decided to embark on this trip, as you say, through every country in Africa, and ultimately with the ultimate destination of getting to England to watch the Springboks at the 2015 Rugby World Cup. So, I mean, I think, you go through 48 countries on mainland Africa over two years of your life. The highlights are just, there's a million individual examples, but I think overwhelmingly it was just the goodness of ordinary people. A lot of people, sort of when you tell them you're going to go and cycle through Africa and you're going to go and cycle through the Congo and, Eritrea and Somalia and Sudan and all these other countries, people say, oh my goodness, surely you must be worried about malaria and getting kidnapped and all these things. But honestly, the goodness of the human spirit and the generosity of ordinary people is my most overwhelming memory from that first trip.
Ron, I'm going to touch on a little bit on what inspired the journey, but before we get there, I'd also like to talk about what you had to give up. I mean, when you talk about cycling for 2 years of your life, and obviously much more, because it didn't stop there, just how much did you have to give up?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think to, first of all, put things into a little bit of perspective, all my married mates will, get pretty envious at how I live my lifestyle. But I was a bachelor with no wife and no kids, so I wasn't just abandoning my family. But outside of that, I was running a relatively successful sports event company in Cape Town. I was also running a charity with a friend of mine. So I was really enjoying life, and it wasn't as if I was in this dark hole and running away from anything particular. But I'd always, in the back of my mind, dreamt of doing a big adventure and doing something crazy with my life. And I started meeting a few people who had done some of these things, and I realized for the first time at 38 years of age that the only difference between those people that had done some of these really cool trips and me was that they'd actually acted upon it, and they weren't necessarily these super rich people or super athletic people. And so that sort of gave me the confidence to do it. But I sold everything. I literally, by the time I decided to do it, sold everything, and that's the cars to the cutlery in the kitchen. And if I couldn't get 10 rand for it, I gave it away. And it was partly to help fund the trip, but also for me it was sort of burning the boats or burning the bridges. Like, if I was going to be serious about attempting this journey, which nobody had ever attempted before, no one's ever attempted a single continuous journey through every country in Africa, and I was going to have to be all in on it. And so that was part of the mental process of getting ready for the trip. I gave up literally everything, bought a bicycle, bought a tent, bought a sleeping bag, and got to the start line, and a few very tentative strokes away from Cape Town Stadium. A very tough few days and weeks on the bikes to begin with, but eventually your body gets used to it. You get used to life on the road, and you just do that every day of your life. And next thing, you've cycled 40,000 Ks and you've crossed the world.
You definitely have. But I'd imagine that one of the most amazing things, or remarkable things that you achieved was delivering the match whistle for the opening game of the 2019 Rugby World Cup. And that must have been an incredible moment for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that first journey when I left Cape Town, as I say, I had no idea what would come out of it. My reward that year was to arrive in Brighton, England, to watch South Africa lose to Japan in the opening game of the 2015 World Cup. So, and that was before Japan were any good. So, things don't always turn out as planned. But yeah, fast forward 4 years, I decided to give it another crack. Went back to Twickenham Stadium, and had the huge honor of being given the match whistle for the opening game of the tournament. And effectively, I guess it's like World Rugby's equivalent of the Olympic flame. And I carried that whistle from Twickenham all the way across Europe, across Asia, and got to Tokyo in time for the opening game of the 2019 World Cup, the massive blockbuster fixture between Russia and Japan. But I got to present the whistle to Nigel Owens, the famous Welsh referee who had the honour of refereeing that game. And, to have that, it's just amazing for a boy who grew up absolutely loving the game and always playing the game I was an enthusiastic amateur at best, but to actually have an official involvement in the World Cup was a huge thrill.
Yeah, I can imagine the emotions that you would have gone through there. But you also raised $150,000 for a child fund, pass it back during your London to Tokyo ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a whole long story, but they're an incredible organisation. And I know South Africa has a lot of examples of organisations that use sport to help give opportunities to young people, to help teach life and sort of development skills to young people. And I'd been living in Asia. I was involved in rugby in the region, and Child Fund Pass It Back used the power of rugby and used the sport of rugby to teach life skills, particularly to young women and girls in countries like Laos and Vietnam. And it was a great honour for them. They were made the principal charity partner of the Rugby World Cup in Japan. So it made perfect sense for me to sort of tie in my journey and to be able to raise funds for them, and to have a bigger purpose than just me getting from point A to point B and having this wildlife adventure. To have the dual purpose of delivering the whistle, but even more importantly, as I say, raising money for Child Fund, and that really just showed me the power of what, getting a participation and just doing, I found that the sweet spot. I could do something I really enjoy, and I could do something that really benefits other people. And for me, that was just too good to be true, really.
Well, Ron, you're in London now, and with the 2023 Rugby World Cup in France approaching, do you have any new adventures or initiative planned in connection with the tournament?
Well, funny you say that. So I went back to Japan last year, and myself and fellow South African Adam Nunn, we cycled from Tokyo to Auckland for the Women's Rugby World Cup. We delivered the whistle for the opening match of that tournament, which had never been done before. The women had never had a whistle for the referee. And then I picked up this whistle. So I've got the whistle for the men's tournament, France 2023. I left Auckland last year, and for the last 8 or 9 months, I've been cycling through South Central and North America. I came across to Ireland a few weeks ago, and I've been cycling from Dublin to Edinburgh to Cardiff, and I reached Twickenham the other day, just in time to watch South Africa play the All Blacks, which was obviously a wonderful game. And then tomorrow morning, 180 of us. I still can't believe it when I say it, but we've got 180 people cycling with me from Twickenham Stadium, 300 kilometers, 3 days, down to Paris. And on Thursday, I have the great honor of delivering the match whistle for the opening game of France 2023, the huge fixture between New Zealand and the All Blacks, New Zealand and France, and delivering it to Jaco Paper. So it's a great thrill that South African referee is represented for the opening of that game.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, what would have motivated these, did you say 180 individuals to cycle
180 people literally from Japan, as far east as Japan, to as far west as the west coast of the US. So 12 or 13 countries represented. And, we're not going to be the fastest cycling bunch to cycle from a lot of ex-rugby people, old, friends of mine from different parts of the world, friends of friends of friends, 1 or 2 degrees of separation, people who support Child Fund. So it's going to be a massively diverse group of people, but we've got this one mission. Everybody who's riding is committing to raising money for Child Fund Rugby. So I'm very hopeful that we'll hit our target of $200,000, which is pretty incredible if you think about it. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it at the same time.
So how do you see the role of sports such as rugby in bringing people together and raising awareness for important causes like charity work? I mean, one of the things that we learned from Madiba, he believed that sport brings people from all walks of life together. And you've indicated that you've got people from as far as Japan that are participating in your cycle tomorrow.
No, well, I think anybody who's played sports, and you don't have to have played at any serious level, we all get so much out of sports, and for a lot of us, we're just super lucky that it's part of our life. And I was a chubby little 6-year-old, and I got given a pair of rugby boots, and all of a sudden I had a community. But there's a lot of people in the world and young people who don't get a chance to play sports. And the way that the way that Child Fund in particular makes a difference is it actually started in Laos, a small landlocked country between Vietnam, Thailand, China. And Chris, who started the program, there's a lot of young girls in the north of the country. They're kind of at 11 or 12 years of age, are taken out of school, and they're expected to go work in the rice fields, work at home. Often they get married off as teenagers. They often end up in the sex trade in the big cities. And these young people have absolutely no opportunities and no formal education, really. And there's a lot of examples, as you say. You referenced Madiba, who was one of the, who started. He was there when Laureus started, and Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, which I think they support 150 programs around the world using different sports to help people. But in particular, in Laos, like it's a very, I guess, what's the word, patriarchal society, so the girls get very little opportunity. And Chris, the founder, was looking at using soccer or football and volleyball, but as soon as he pulled out these different sports, the boys said, no, that's our sport. So he said, okay, well, here's a different sport. It's called rugby, and it's a girls' sport, and nobody knew any different. So the girls kind of took ownership of the game.
Wow.
And Laos and Vietnam are the only two countries in the world that have a higher female participation in rugby than males, and that's thanks to a child fund. And they're not there to find the next superstar. They're not there to create the next, Sia Khaleesi, but they are there to give these young people an opportunity to learn to play a sport, to have some fun, and they use those sessions to then teach them basic life skills, whether it's sexual reproductive health or basic education skills, or just, again, skills that anybody who finishes high school learn. And the nice thing is that this program has been going 7 or 8, 9 years, and a lot of these young girls and now young boys that have been through the program are now delivering it. So they've become the coaches. So it's kind of proved itself as a sort of sustainable model. These young people are now paid to deliver the program, and instead of, in inverted commas, just working in the rice fields or being, doomed to go and work in the kitchens or the sex trade in the cities, they are actually now leaders in their communities delivering these programs. So it's amazing. It's just an amazing concept. I mean, they're not the first to use sport, and they're not the first to use rugby, but they do it very, very well. They started in Southeast Asia. They now do work in South Africa and other countries in Africa, and I'm just so proud to be involved.
So, Ron, how do we all contribute to this $200,000 that you're trying to raise? Obviously, the people across the continent, people right here in South Africa that are watching the show, that are watching you at this moment, and would like to offer their support.
Well, I mean, so grateful. If you go to racetoRugbyWorldCup.com, it's our website. It could do with a bit of work. We haven't spent any money on the website. We'd rather put it into the program. But there's a link there. Give and Gain. It operates in South Africa. The guys are based in Stellenbosch. So every single cent goes directly to the program. RacetoRugbyWorldCup.com. Click on donate. $5, $10, $100, whatever you can afford. One thing I can do is promise you that the money goes directly to the young people and the beneficiaries. And it's, I know it's tough out there, but if you do have it really is. If you want to put your money to something that you know is going to be a worthwhile cause, I really value you and appreciate anybody going there.
Well, Ron, when you landed the last time, South Africa were playing Japan, and not so good Japan, you said, and obviously lost. Now they're defending champions of this World Cup. How do you foresee South Africa performing in France 2023? Well,
I was lucky enough. I reached London actually last Thursday, so I managed to get a ticket to watch South Africa play the All Blacks at Twickenham. One of the great rugby and sporting experiences of my life. And I'm trying not to get ahead of myself too much and look too much into that, but what an atmosphere. My goodness, it was just absolutely incredible. We've got a hell of a tough group. And, I'm certainly not counting any chickens, but I'm quietly confident we'll be there at the business end of the tournament. I really, really do think, Rassie Erasmus and Sia Khaleesi and the leadership team, they've got a plan. And, I think things are coming right. We are in a very, very tough half of the draw. I think the All Blacks, we mustn't look into their performance. We mustn't overestimate ourselves or underestimate them, but it's going to be a heck of a tournament. I'd love to see a South African-French final. That's my dream final. It's always nice when the home team goes through.
Yeah.
Be able to absolutely smash France in the final would be a wonderful cherry on the top.
I'm sure it would. Finally, Ron, before we let you go, what advice do you have for individuals looking to embark on their own adventure, whether it's for personal growth or for a charitable cause?
Very good question. Very easy answer is just get to the start line. It's so easy to dream up 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. And, as I say, I was in a unique position of being, a bachelor, no wife, or kids' independence. But, adventure isn't defined by the length or the duration or the size of the thing. Adventure is just anything that's out of your comfort zone. So if you've got an idea, if you've got something you've always wanted to do, honestly, just get to the start line and whether it's turning the pedals or taking those first steps or starting your own business or whatever you want to do in life, I think we find so many reasons not to do things, and I think just cracking on and getting on with it, you'll find a way to make it happen.
Ron, wish you all the best. Thanks so much for speaking to us on Newsfeed, the PM edition.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, guys. I really appreciate it, and go Bokke.